This kind of follows a format as we do the slides on our announcements, and to kind of give a preliminary is that, you know, as much as we're hyped up and anxiety about the election, as co-leads, we've kind of decided to begin to wind down in the year. And so this is sort of the beginning and looking at what Rachel's going to share with us and looking at cultivating hope. And I'll talk about the rest of what's coming up in the next 2 months after October. So next screen, please. So this is the activity is going to happen next Monday, one of our chapter activities. And this all started back in June when National had a focus at the conference on diversity. And then June, somebody's got an echo there.
Well,
Okay.
Somebody's got it.
Thank
Yeah, so.
and Jan,
Yeah.
sorry, it was initially scheduled for Monday, but
Oh.
October 22nd is Thursday.
Oh,
It's scheduled for Thursday.
Thursday, and the date is correct?
The date is correct, but not the
The
day.
day is wrong. Okay. So this is a continuation of actually what I was starting to say from our June conference. And then in June, we focused on diversity. And then we also had a discussion on, a separate discussion on white fragility, Robin DiAngelo's book. And now we are, which was actually a video of her. This is a video. And will be shown and then followed by a discussion, as Dolly corrected me. It's Thursday, October 22nd coming up. You have to register for this on Eventbrite. You can see the information right there on the screen. And the reason why is that we're limiting this to 25 people, and we've already got at least 7 or 8 signed up. It is on Facebook. And if you use Facebook, should be an interesting, this is just a continuation of our focus in regards to learning more about what we can do as a CCL chapter and just having a discussion about it. Okay, next screen. The November meeting and program is going to be a poetry slam master, Sprout, from the Diatribe, as you can see listed there. So it will be November 19th, and our start time is 6:30. As usual, we'll gather and have a meeting like this and then move into her presentation. It should be very interesting, quite different. Like I said, we decided to take a different approach in the last part of this year, and we'll have this, and then we don't have a screen for it, but our December meeting will be a look back to what we've done all year and what might be your favorites and discussing, and then looking forward into the new year, because we certainly will be virtual for a long time. We're expecting, so as co-leads, we are looking at what will be of interest for programs coming up in 2021. Okay. Now, the next few screens are all really focused on our actions as a chapter that we look at, but they correlate directly with the national actions. And we have had the screen probably for the last how many months, of those who've been attending regularly know that we've been pushing this monthly calling campaign, which is really simple to sign up. The site is right there and will be in the chat, like John said. And the reason why we're pushing it is because we don't have that many people signed up that are doing it. You know, it takes all of 5 minutes once a month. And even though Representative Amash is going out, like I explained before, we are still calling him, still encouraging him to reach out and make a statement in regards to climate change and putting a price on carbon. So this is a good way to do it. Okay, next screen. Now, I have several things to say about this because I contacted the person who is responsible for this area. We started a team of people to participate in Voters Not Politicians, and then as co-leads, we decided to switch focus and attempt to call our supporters from the last few years, which we have a long list of. And so, but we still are encouraging you as individuals to sign up. This is a local group established in Michigan. They're doing a fantastic job. Had received an email from Amanda, and there's also information in the chat about how you can volunteer, and I'm going to go over really quickly about that. They are needing people to do calling in regards to, believe it or not, most of us, I expect, have voted, but there are many people that haven't yet, and there are those who are last minute that may not have the right information on where the drop boxes are, what are safe to do, and all of that. So Voters Not Politicians are doing that statewide with a calling system. They are also making sure that they have enough poll watchers, and there's certain cities in the state that they still need poll watchers. One of them, I can just tell you, there's a list of them that we can provide, but there are none that are really close to us, but except Mount Pleasant still needs poll watchers, and of course, much of the Detroit area and Albion. So if you want more information on that, you can go to their site. They will be able to tell you that, particularly if you've got family or friends in any of those areas that would be willing to volunteer to do those kinds of things. And there are other pieces to that that they are working on that are certainly valuable in this process of getting people out to vote, as many of the organizations are doing. Okay, next one. This one we have also put out there for several months. It is supported by CCL. It's an organization that is not in Michigan, but is focused on 12 states in getting people to get them to vote who consider themselves environmentalists, but have not had the greatest voting record. And I believe this organization has been doing fantastic work in moving that needle and getting a larger percentage from the standpoint of 2016 and 2018. It's increased considerably. It's another phoning bank, but it's a slick process and very easy to do. I'm on their list. I've done it once and plan to do it more. And they do the training for you, and it's all very simple in the process. So it's a great organization and another way to get involved. It was our national call from last Saturday. Alex Posner, he's a president of the Students for Carbon Dividend, and he spoke, very interesting presentation. He is a Republican, and it's interesting, we saw him at a national conference speak in their group and why they support putting a price on carbon and support CCL and all our work. So it just shows and supports CCL on how we continue to be nonpartisan in the importance of that, and especially having younger people. Okay, next one. This is also a national action that's happening that is directed by Lisa Del Bona, one of our Michigan people out of Traverse City. She has put together with the Health Action Team at a national CCL level called Healthcare Consortium. And what they're doing is they're trying to get as many names as they can from people within the healthcare system to support either climate change in a general language or putting a price on carbon in regards to HR 763. And the last I heard from Lisa that they had already gotten over 800 names. They are shooting for 1,000 or more. So why we put this up here, it's excellent for you to be able, if you know people in the healthcare, either as a nurses, physical therapist or whatever, who would be willing to put their name on the list as a healthcare supporter, professional, and or doctors. It really, anyone that qualifies within that profession, and trying to get as many people on this list. Why? Because this works towards our meetings with our legislators and showing that there are influential people that feel very strongly about what we're doing. So, okay. All right. I still have 9 minutes left, guys. and timing myself. So I just wanted to check and see, and I will make this quick. Any questions at all or comments in regards to what I just went over?
I just want to say again, if you look in the chat, you'll find links to all this information. Copy what you want, put it in an email, send it to yourself. It's not a bad way to get information. And I will comment too that for a non-partisan group, we are still political. We are looking to turn out the vote. We are looking to work with all parties.
Okay.
Jan, you said you did that environmental calls.
Yes, I did.
You're actually calling people directly on like their cell phones or something?
They are very slick on how they have it set up. It's actually, now John, correct me, it's dialing. And so you go into the computer system and they literally are dialing the people for you. Of course, you have a script, you have a list, you have everything right there in front of you on a computer screen. And the person, when they connect with the person, they're right there on the phone, and all you have to do is say, "Hi, I'm Jan. This is so and so. Yes, da 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 da." And you proceed with that. You just check off on the list, and then moves to the next one and to the next one. You don't even have to dial the numbers.
Yeah, you don't dial the
awesome.
numbers. You get live people. You don't get hang-ups. If you wish
Yeah.
to, you can use Google. They'll give you Google Voice number, so your number doesn't show up. You can guard your own phone number.
Gotcha. All right, thanks.
But it moves fast. They're looking for people, particularly in the next week or two, and they know the lists of people who have not voted or come out, or they've already studied all the information. They've got it down. So, okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, how do you get in?
Oh, how do you get into the screens? I'm sorry about that, Andy.
I shut down my computer. I used 1, 2, 3. It's all right. I'll just listen, but just I'm sorry that I can't get in and see you guys.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you can't get in either, but we have nothing that we can tell you other than what we've already said. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, John, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Rachel.
Unmute, always good. I met Rachel this February at a kickoff event in Grand Rapids for Extinction Rebellion. I have a soft spot for Extinction Rebellion because I think it's changed the path in my home country of the United Kingdom. November 2018, one of the great events was they closed 5 bridges in London for a week and maintain those bridges closed, which is crazy. But they're very slick and sophisticated. They closed the 5 bridges they closed for the London Marathon. So there are backup plans for this. They had food for people on these bridges. The police say this is the best demonstration they've ever policed. People spoke to us, people were kind, people gave us food. Some bridges, people are going to be arrested, some kids doing projects there. So I had a soft spot for Extinction Rebellion, I still do, I'm very proud. And Rachel was there. She led a breakout group for this. And deep in that core philosophy of people who care is, how do we care for each other? How do we care for those who care for the environment or care for climate? And I think fast forward, this was just before COVID closed things down. Fast forward 6, 7 months, 8 months, good grief, I see the need even greater. I know little about Rachel, but from her biography, she's a mother, a partner, and a messy human committed to healing and liberation. How good is that? Trained, certified in mindfulness, mind and body-centered self-discovery. Joanna Macy's work, social, racial, and environmental justice. Before these topics became mainstream, I get the feeling that Rachel was there before us. And I've reached an age now that when I don't know what I'm doing, I look around at people who are doing stuff well and say, let me listen to you. I think I'm delighted to listen to you, Rachel. And her links are in the chat. I don't think we'll be taking questions in the chat, although you can certainly pose them. But I suspect this is a process rather than questions, I turn you up to Rachel. I don't even know how to pronounce your last name, Rachel. I'm going to say Koeson, but if I'm wrong, I apologize.
No problem. It's Koeson.
Oh,
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be with you this evening. As John said, my name is Rachael Koeson. I use she, her pronouns. And I would like to begin our time just by acknowledging that we are likely, all of us, if we're in Michigan, on the land of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. And that these are people that have been stewards of this land and continue to be stewards of this land. And it feels important to connect with that lineage of care and of resistance to extractive capitalist colonial models, which has gotten us where we are now and which causes so much pain for our planet and for us. So there is an organization called the Native Justice Coalition that I will put a link to also in the chat, which is in a moment, which is it's a Michigan-based indigenous effort that I would encourage you to check out and support. Yeah, and let's see, I'm gonna plug my computer in there. So I'm really glad to be here with you. I have found the work of Joanna Macy to be really profoundly supportive to me as someone who feels the pain of just violence against our earth and the people of our earth and the more than human beings, the plants and the animals, pretty acutely. And I find Joanna, so one book that I would really recommend to you it's called Active Hope. Probably it's backwards for you, but it's called Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy. And it's a little bit dated now, but it's still quite good. And it might be kind of like a book club, something you might be interested in doing together. But I remember ordering the book and then being scared to read it for a long time, and then finally getting a group together to read it together. And I think that what speaks to me so much about her work, which is called The Work That Reconnects, and that's what we're having just we're just kind of dipping our toes in it tonight. It's we have a short time together, and I want to not feel like we're rushing through everything. So we're going to just sort of spaciously try to experience a little bit of her work. And hopefully some of you were also able to listen to the podcast that I sent out. And if you haven't been able to yet, I would encourage you to do that as well. So I'm just going to do that. Let's see what feels important. So in our time together tonight, I'm gonna just introduce you a little bit to this work, the work that reconnects, and we'll have a couple, maybe if we have time, 3 practices, which are part of that spiral of the work that reconnects. And this is an experience that I hope everyone will come into as much as you feel comfortable doing. There isn't any pressure to participate in a way that doesn't feel safe to you or doesn't feel authentic to you. So just, there isn't any pressure. And really we're only doing one sort of interactive practice, and then the others are more something that you'll be experiencing in yourself, but in the collective together. So with that, I'll just talk a little bit about the work that reconnects, which Joanna Macy has been a longtime activist, and she's also a translator of Rilke and a Buddhist, and she has a really beautiful On Being interview as well from a while ago, if anyone is a fan of that show. And she really developed this work as a response to the burnout, particularly of environmental activists, but I think it applies to really any kind of activism. And as I think more people are becoming aware now, it's all really interconnected. Racial justice is environmental justice, and gender justice is environmental justice, and all of, in so many ways, disability justice is environmental justice. Like it's all connected. So, and I'm glad that the work that Reconnects has been doing a lot more to sort of to talk about that, how everything is connected, particularly like through the damage that extractive capitalism, and which is a product of colonialism, which is connected to racism, which is, you know, so it's all in there together. And she really noticed that people who were showing up to defend the earth and the people and the animals of the earth weren't really letting themselves feel the pain of what we're seeing, of what we know is happening. And one thing I really appreciate about this work is the awareness that the pain we feel for we feel the pain we feel because we care, and because we are part of the earth. Like we are earth. We are the earth feeling the pain of the violence that she's experiencing. And we'll get into that a little bit more lately, but I just find that to be very nourishing. So the spiral, I'm gonna share my screen. And sorry, just one moment. So the spiral of the work that reconnects is the image that we oops, sorry, pushing the wrong buttons. This is the spiral of the work that reconnects. So this is a beautiful illustration by Dory Midnight. And we begin, you can really experience the spiral in any order, but generally the way it goes, and what we'll be experiencing tonight, is to start with rooting into gratitude. And I'll talk about that as we do it. And then moving into honoring our pain for the world. And from there, being able to see with new, or sometimes now they say new and ancient eyes, and going forth. And this is sort of the path or the pattern of this work. And it's really a practice that's meant to be engaged with. You know, I feel like I end up tapping into this multiple times a day in some sort of more abbreviated version, but it's also, there's an entire book of practices that can be done together collectively or also individually around each of these kind of stops on the spiral. So this is the overview of what we're going to do together, and I'd just like to share some of the basic assumptions of the work that reconnects. So beginning with, this world in which we are born and take our being is alive. Our true nature is far more ancient and encompassing than the separate self defined by habit and society. Our experience of pain for the world springs from our connectivity to all beings, from which also arise our powers to act on their behalf. Unblocking occurs when our pain for the world is not only acknowledged, but experienced. When we reconnect with life by choosing to bear our pain for it, for her, or for him, or for them, the mind retrieves its natural clarity. The experience of reconnection with the earth community arouses the urge to act on their behalf. So I'm gonna just read a couple of these quotes from Joanna. The biggest gift you can give is to be absolutely present. And when you're worrying about whether you're hopeful or hopeless or pessimistic or optimistic, who cares? The main thing is that you're showing up, that you're here, and that you're finding ever more capacity to love this world, because it will not be healed without that. That is what is going to unleash our intelligence and our ingenuity and our solidarity for the healing of our world. So this piece around really being present to the pain and also the beauty. So, rooting into gratitude, and also then moving into honoring what's painful about being alive and what we're seeing happening. Whoops. Okay, I guess this is what's next. I thought it was something else. So these are some of the guidelines for this work. Attuning to common intention, to welcome diversity, to know that only the whole can repair itself, which is about we cannot individually fix the world. So I noticed you're doing some work around white fragility and anti-racism, and I, if you haven't yet, would really recommend your group reading the article on the characteristics of white supremacy culture by Tema Okun and Kenneth Jones, which I'll send a link to after. I'll send links to all the things that I reference, but one of the things that shows up in white supremacy culture, which is just, kind of dominant culture in the United States particularly, is this individualism. And Joanna's work really is trying to help us understand that it's not just us, which there's a lot of relief in that, I think, can be a lot of relief in that it's, I think, a lot of us that can come to this work thinking, I have to, all by myself, end climate change or stop racism or uproot, hatred. And that's not real, it's not possible. And the move toward community, the move toward connectivity, the move toward seeing ourselves as part of a larger whole of the earth and of the other humans is really crucial. So that's what this is speaking to. Healing wounded relationships within ourselves and between ourselves and others is also integral to the healing of our world. You're only a small part of a much larger process, like a nerve cell in a neural net. And she adds, so learn trust. Trust means taking part and taking risks when you cannot control or even see the outcome. Open flows of information from the larger system. Do not resist painful information about the condition of your world, but understand the pain you feel for the world springs from interconnectivity. And again, she talks a lot about open systems, like understanding, like we live in a closed system. We're getting information from the earth that the way we're showing up isn't working, right? It's harmful. But we're just continuing to kind of keep on that path. And she talks a lot about the importance of open systems, of being able to notice oh, this isn't working the way we wanted to. How do we adjust to that? And Adrienne Marie Brown, who wrote a book called Emergent Strategy, which some of you may be familiar with, also talks about this idea of fractals, which is how we behave in small ways is how we're showing up in big ways too. So if we can be open systems who are open to new information, who are open to seeing how what we're doing is making an impact, and maybe it's not the impact we're wanting, then that is connected to how we're showing up in bigger ways. Speak the truth of your experience in this world. I really like number 7. Believe no one who claims to have the final answer. Work increasingly in teams or joint projects serving common aims, which I'm glad to see you all are doing so much. Be generous with your strengths and skills. They are not private property. Draw forth the strengths of others by your own acknowledgement of them. You do not need to see the results of your work, which I think is really powerful. I think, a lot of her work that we might not have time for tonight is around deep time. So understanding our experience as part of a continuum of time that reaches very far back to our ancestors and goes very far forward into the future of future beings. And I think part of this kind of idea of the dominant culture we live in is that we need to be able to see, we can fall into hopelessness if we don't see the direct impact of something we've done in a very immediate way. And I think it's very nourishing to lean back into, we don't need to see the results of our work, and we can still trust that that we are making an impact. Putting forth great effort, let there also be serenity in all you're doing. For you are held within the web of life, within flows of energy and intelligence far exceeding your own. Which I know that is something that comes up for me of, and I think is part of our dominant culture narrative too, of like work, and try really hard and just like plow through our discouragement or our despair or our hopelessness into just trying to do something. So I think this piece of allowing flow and of allowing rest and of allowing a bigger perspective is so important as well. So we're going to move into a little practice around rooting into gratitude. And just to lay out a few kind of ground rules, everyone is fully autonomous. So if you don't want to participate in this, or if you want to choose the level at which you participate in it, that's totally okay. It's your call. I would also encourage you to sort of like lean in to maybe it's a little bit of discomfort is okay. And confidentiality, this I don't think would elicit this exercise I don't think should bring anything up that would really activate this, but we will take what we learn and leave what is said as our group agreement. And another is just to seek support. So like if, I know that a lot of us feel this quite deeply, and that makes sense. And if it starts, and it's connected to a lot of other things we can feel quite deeply. So just if this activates anything inside of you that feels really overwhelming, make sure you're talking to people about it. Make sure you're reaching out to get support, because it can kind of open a doorway sometimes. So we are going to do this open sentences practice. It's very simple. And I chose things that are all things that you can do with each other, with yourself, in another group, so that it's something you can take with you and kind of make your own. So we're going to go into breakout rooms of 2 people that will be random. If you're already with another person, you, I guess, could stay in your stay together. I'm not sure how we figure that out, but we'll do our best. Do our best. And there will be one person who's sharing and one person who's listening. And when you're in the listening role, you're just listening. So you're just receiving what it is that the person is sharing. And then when you're in the sharing role, your job is sharing. And actually, before we start that, I just want to say one other thing about gratitude. So I tend to get real prickly around people telling me I need to just be grateful for things, or like, you know, oh, well, it could be worse, or like this kind of stuff, I think can really shut us down. I have a friend who says gratitude makes me grumpy, and I get that. Like, I think that there's a lot of kind of toxic positivity that's not very helpful. So that's not what this is. Joanna talks a lot about gratitude as a subversive political act, because we live in a, you know, this dominant culture says you're not enough, you don't have enough, and you're never going to be enough, and you're never going to have enough. But maybe the next thing will help a little bit. So if we can pay attention to what we're grateful for and what nourishes us and what's already present in our lives, it really can, because the root of so much of this like consumptive, extractive stuff is that kind of sense of not being enough, or the sense of not having enough. So when we can really turn toward what we love, what is particularly, you know, in nature, it's so easy for people who love the earth to, like the nasturtiums have totally kept me going all summer. I just have this big giant mountain of them, and I love everything about them, and every time I see them it supports me, and I'm picking them and I'm giving the seeds to neighbors, and I'm enjoying noticing how they're changing, and the seeds are so cool. And like the specificity of these orange nasturtiums is really helps me root into my gratitude. Let's add one other slide. I think about that. I'm just going to decide if we want to. Yeah, maybe I'll just share them real quickly. So she says, gratitude is liberating. It is subversive. It helps us to realize that we are sufficient, and that realization frees us. Oh, okay, so that was the only one I had for that. So what we're gonna do is go into these groups, and we're just for 2 minutes each, we're gonna share one thing, or not one thing, we're gonna share some things you love about being alive on Earth. And if you can be as specific as possible, I would encourage you to do so. And just, you know, silence is okay. So if you say something and then it's quiet while you kind of notice what's coming next, like, that's wonderful. So just see if you can sit with the silence if silence comes. When you're the only one talking, sometimes 2 minutes can seem like a really long time. And so if you just use that, any silent time, to maybe just notice what else is there, and know that it's okay. Silence is okay. So let's see, Chris, are you gonna do the breakout rooms maybe?
Yeah, I was gonna set up. Are you ready?
Yeah, so you'll go into the breakout rooms and you'll get a little message from Chris when it's time for you to switch. So you don't need to worry about that. And then you'll switch, and then you'll get a little message that says, go ahead and thank your partner, and then come and that will be come back into the room. So you'll have like the 60-second kind of warning, and you can spend that time to just say thank you to each other for listening and sharing, and then come back to the big group. Through our lines and never metabolized, never processed, never healed, and that trauma has then, as folks of European descent showed up on Turtle Island, what we call the United States, blew that trauma through the bodies of Indigenous folks and African folks, and we're still grappling with the results of that today. So I think it's also important to name that our, as white people, white body supremacy and white privilege is also about, like, healing from that is about reclaiming our humanity, because we can't be fully human when we can participate in a system that's so violent to other humans. And so I think that's just an important nuance, you know, like, and I have lots of other things I could say about that, but I hear you and I appreciate you naming that. And, you know, I think this next piece of honoring our pain is connected to that. Like, I feel a lot of pain around being in a white body and what that has meant and what that means. And it's important for me to be able to feel that so I can heal it, so I can do less harm. Yeah. Anybody have anything around this piece of around gratitude? And I agree with you 200% that it's really important for us to, and you know, this is another vestige of white body supremacy, which is born out of trauma, is a cutting off, like a living here, which is part of our body, but it's not all of our body. And we miss a lot of things. We don't allow ourselves to kind of inhabit our bodies and experience the fullness of being alive on the earth, of feeling the breeze, of standing in of feeling the grass.
Rachel?
Yeah. Mentioning it to my my partner in our sharing, and I actually thought about reading that as part of our gratitude piece, but she also has a really wonderful podcast interview that I'll send out in the links, and where she tells, which this is also in Braiding Sweetgrass, the creation story of Turtle Island, which is about reciprocity. Yeah. And it's about caring, the earth caring for us and the creatures of the earth caring for us, and just what a different orientation we would have to the earth if our creation myth was really informed by that kind of reciprocity.
Yeah, exactly. There's much to learn there for.
Yeah. So thank you for trying that out. And I'm noticing time is just really flying by, as it's wont to do. So I think, when were you hoping you need like 10 minutes at the end? Is that, Chris? Should I be? No.
Keep going.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'd like to maybe see do people need to just use the restroom or anything like that, or are we okay to keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. If you do need to go, feel free as you need to. So we're going to move into this honoring our pain for the world piece, and I'm going to share a couple of slides for that. Do
you want to come in and sit and watch some of this?
Oops, I keep doing the wrong button. I'm trying to do present, not share. Okay, here we go. So these are some more quotes from Joanna Macy. The sorrow, grief, and rage you feel is a measure of your humanity. and your evolutionary maturity. As your heart breaks open, there will be room for the world to heal. It is good to realize that falling apart is not such a bad thing. Indeed, it is as essential to evolutionary and psychological transformation as the cracking of outgrown shells. This is a dark time filled with suffering and uncertainty. Like living cells in a larger body, it is natural that we feel the trauma of our world. So don't be afraid of the anguish you feel or the anger or fear, because these responses arise from the depth of your caring and the truth of your interconnectedness with all beings. And one more. The refusal to feel takes a heavy toll. Not only is there an impoverishment of our emotional and sensory life, flowers are dimmer and less fragrant, our loves less ecstatic, but this psychic numbing also impedes our capacity to process and respond to information. The energy expended in pushing down despair is diverted for more creative uses, depleting the resilience and imagination needed for fresh visions and strategies. And I think that's really important. Like, and again, you know, coming back to this, this kind of dominant culture, colonial, extractive capitalist monster is also doesn't want us to feel things. You know, feeling things is kind of dangerous. It's a little bit scary. We don't often have very good modeling of of being able to move through having a feeling. And it can be pretty easy to get stuck. I know that, you know, this book, Active Hope, she talks a lot about cultivating active hope is a process of turning toward our experiencing and not sort of getting stuck in either the despair that we're just totally screwed, or the kind of dissociation that like everything will be fine. She talks about it as the words are escaping me at the moment, but the business as usual narrative, or I forget what the other one is called, and she's calling us into like being part of the great turning of like looking at reality the way that it is, and also rooting into gratitude, honoring our pain, and being able to like move forward. So I'm going to invite all of us into a practice. It's called Breathing Through, and I'm going to be sending a link to Joanna offering this practice, and also one that I recorded. So you'll be able to do this later. And I hope that I use this quite a lot. And if anybody's new to meditation or guided meditation, just, you know, see what happens. There isn't a right or wrong thing. And I'll lead you through it. If at any point you feel overwhelmed or it's just too much, I would invite you to just open your eyes if they're closed, look around the room, find something in the room that you like to look at. And if you need to, you can, you know, think about your grocery list or something else completely if it's feeling too much. So I would invite you to turn inward, whatever that means for you. You can close your eyes if you'd like. You don't have to. You might take a soft gaze. And just notice your body in your chair, whatever you're sitting on. You might notice if your feet are on the ground. And as you notice your feet on the ground, you may consider imagining that they have some roots. If that doesn't sound good to you, you could imagine a kind of a light or an energy or a flow of water that's moving from your body and through your feet into the earth. Through the bottom of your house or wherever you are. And you might feel those roots going down, spreading out. And you might imagine that your roots are coming into contact with all kinds of things in the earth, beings and the roots of other trees, of other plants. You might imagine that the people in this group or people in your family or people that you feel close to, your roots are connecting with their roots. Just notice what that's like, some connection. You're not alone. We need each other. You might notice that if you kind of zoom back and look down, we're all in this web of life together. I'm connected to you, and you're connected to the blue jay in your yard, and the blue jay is connected to the lilac bush, and the lilac bush is connected to the sunshine, and the sunshine is connected to the stars, and the stars are connected to your pet. Your pet is connected to your friend. It's not just you, it's all of us. Maybe see if you can just sort of lean into that a little bit. Like, let yourself feel as much as you can those connections. It might be, more tangible to imagine the people who've supported you to be where you are, or the plants and perhaps animals that you have consumed to keep your body going. We don't exist alone or in a vacuum. And letting yourself hear that the web of life is strong. We don't have to hold all the pain ourselves. And we're gonna really try to anchor that feeling, if it's coming, if it's accessible, that you're supported by the earth, by these connections, by your roots, by the bigness of the universe. And just begin to open yourself toward the pain you feel for the world. It might show up as a personal pain. It might show up as what you know is happening to our water, to our soil, to our air, to other humans. It's all connected. And just see if you can let yourself feel that. Remembering that it hurts because you care. And that that's natural and good. And if it doesn't feel accessible, it's okay too. That's okay. Sometimes it's been a long time since we let ourselves feel the pain, and it takes some trust building with ourselves. But as you're beginning to feel this sadness or despair or grief, see if you can imagine sort of, it's like a ribbon or a color stream of color that you're breathing in. Breathing it in through your nose, letting it come into your heart, letting yourself feel the sadness, the grief, whatever it is that's here. And then breathing it back out into the web of life. You can feel it, and then you can breathe it back out. It doesn't need to be stuck. You can move it through. Just continuing that for a bit, the practice of noticing what pains you. Could be families being separated, could be violence against humans, against animals, against our earth, our lands. It could be a broken relationship in your life, whatever it is. Breathing it into your heart, maybe feeling the shape, the color, the texture of that grief, that sadness. And then breathing it out into the web, into this strong, connected, giant web of life that can hold this pain too. And then just maybe coming back into your roots, following the roots up to your feet. Noticing your feet on the floor. And just offering yourself a little bit of kindness or gratitude for whatever you were able to show up for with this practice. Maybe it wasn't what you had hoped, or maybe it was very, very big. Either way, whatever happened is okay. Just give yourself a little thanks for doing what you could. And then maybe a nice deep breath into your belly if that's accessible. And then you can come back into the space. You don't have to look at the screen right away. You can look in around you, see where you are. Kind of get grounded back in your surroundings. And I'm so sad to see I still had so many wonderful things to do. But I'm hoping that your group can maybe engage in some of them together. I can send some suggestions, or maybe come back at some point. And yeah, maybe just one or two people want to share anything about what that was like, if you know, as much as you feel comfortable. Or
It was great.
It
was a good.
It's really important to be able to talk about this with each other, like to talk about how we're experiencing the pain or the hopelessness or the grief. We have a lot of messages around not talking about what's hard, and that doesn't really serve us. So being able to share with each other, with other people in your life that you trust, you know, just the impact of reading the news. Like, this is a practice I do with just when I just take in information, you know, like seeing another Black trans woman has been killed, seeing, you know, pipelines being whatever it is. Like, this is something you can use in your daily life if it was meaningful to you as a practice. That's what practices are. My children are getting really loud in the background, but that's what practices are all about. Keep practicing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I will make sure to send out probably more links than you're interested in of a lot of the things we touched on, and I'm grateful that you showed up and tried this out, and appreciate the care that you all have and the work you're doing to shift things, to be part of the great turning, as Joanna Macy says. One final quote I'll leave you with is that she says, we don't know if we're sitting deathbed to the earth or if we're midwifing something new, but that either way we would bring the same energy to caring for the process of what's happening. And I take a lot of solace in that. Don't know what's going to happen, and that she talks about our uncertainty unleashing our most creative selves if we can stay present to it. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for each of you that showed up tonight and been a part of this. Certainly, as I said in the beginning, we took a turn as co-leads to try this and do something different. And we appreciate the gifts that Rachel has given to us in this moment, that we can move forward maybe with some renewed energy and where we focus and the work that we have to do. I particularly can share that the one image that came to my mind is those photos that the astronauts took when they were going around the moon and they were looking at the Earth and this beautiful globe. If we can think of ourselves in that sense of you talking about being rooted, that we are rooted to this place, and how much it looks, if you have this distant perspective, and
Yeah.
we need to be together on all of this. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So thank you, each of you, and go and be safe, and we care, and we'll stay connected, and especially those, Kathleen, thank you for coming and attending, and Sue, and those of you that we haven't seen for a while. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Rachel, for this evening.
Yes. Thank you all.